Welcome to TWitWoW, the best wrestling podcast made for wrestling fans, by wrestling fans, on the web today. I'm John, that's my cohort and commentary Ashton, and this is our NXT review. And I gotta say, I really enjoyed this past episode of NXT. We continue the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic, and I think every match, if I'm not mistaken, had Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic implications to it, and I enjoyed every single match. Thought they were a lot of fun, thought it was great, and I like that this whole tournament got an entire episode devoted to it, because we know there are a lot of other storylines going on as we head to NXT TakeOver Toronto. But this really made, I mean, if the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic already wasn't a big deal, this made it feel like a huge deal when it gets an entire episode devoted to itself and its progression. I loved it. Partner, what'd you think of it?
I mean, yeah, you said every match, but I think every segment except for maybe one was dedicated to the Dusty Classic this week. So there was one interview that was with Cedric Alexander, and even that you could say related to the Dusty Classic, because he was talking about his former Dusty Classic partner, Andrade Cien. So pretty much every segment on this show related to, in some way or another, the Dusty Classic. And yeah, John, you made a great point. I think that does make for a really good show, and I think it really does come back to something that you've been saying. When NXT has a goal, they become really, really good.
Thank you, dude. Thank you for bringing my sentiments back around, because I have been saying that. And I think this episode, oddly enough, more than the other ones where I haven't shut up about it, really exemplifies that point. When NXT has a dominant theme or a sense of purpose, it really becomes one of the best shows that WWE has. Now, I still think that distinction belongs to SmackDown Live, because I love, what they do and how they do it. But I mean, yeah, NXT, man, this is the NXT that I love. This is the NXT that is the perfect complement to Lucha Underground on Wednesday nights, and really, I will say this too, given that Lucha Underground was kind of there this week, I'd say NXT was the better show for me. I enjoyed it more, because I felt like they both adhered to the same format of, let's do a lot of matches with very little kind of story, but I feel like the matches were more significant on the NXT side. And I just enjoyed them more on the whole. But NXT should enjoy it, because then the next 2 weeks of Lucha are going to be insane. But yeah, I mean, this Dusty Classic, I'm enjoying it infinitely more than I did last year, with the inaugural one, and it's been great. So with that said, do you have anything else you want to say before we get into our first segment?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think we can get right into it.
Heat of the night. And I've got no heats of the night tonight. I felt like certain problems that arose, for the tournament, they handled quite gracefully and quite intelligently. Can't complain about that. So yeah, no complaints on the whole about this show. What about you, partner?
Yeah, same here, man. This was a really fun show. I'm just looking down my show sheet right now, and there's just nothing that I could complain about on this. I mean, nothing at all.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. So now, with that said, let us get right into our NXT review. And now this NXT is kind of formatted weirdly, because what was it? Was it Charly Caruso that was talking to us, or it was one of the interview hands? Because I think a lot of the tournament matches took place, I guess, at a separate live event that we were being privy to on this episode. So she kind of runs things down for us, and we open things up with Roderick Strong and Austin Aries. Austin Aries, of course, suffering that sick eye injury. I think it was something with the orbital bone or something that caused, facial disfigurement for poor Aries. And he's just talking about how he can't compete and this and that. Now, this is where I have to credit NXT for their ingenuity, because, Austin Aries is feeling it up, and he's like, look, TM61, we would have beaten you guys anyway. Just forfeit, so you don't have to, embarrass yourselves, and then me and Roderick can advance. William Regal comes out and he says, look, Aries, you can't compete, but Dusty Rhodes is all about a competitive spirit, and I'm not about to have the Tag Team Classic stalled, for this crap. So what we're going to do is, Roderick, you're going to face a member of TM61. He ends up taking on Shane Thorne, and this was a great match, dude. And really, I'm glad that Roderick got his first singles match out of the way this early. I wish it was under different circumstances, because these are weird circumstances to have it. But it's great as just a reminder to everybody how brilliant he is in the ring. Because I think my favorite part of this match was the in-ring psychology on Roderick's part. Because there is a moment in this match where he does this sick sidewalk slam on the top turnbuckle, which, credit to Shane Thorne, I think why it's so sick is because he sold it like death. Like, oh my God, what happened to my back? And then Roderick is just zoning in on it, which I think made for a really compelling match. Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed this, dude. And I think if I have gripes about anything on a subjective side, it is the outcome, because Roderick was just so brilliant in there. I was pulling for him to win towards the end. What did you think about this match?
Yeah, I mean, I think that this match, if nothing else, which I think we've already been kind of saying this for a while now, but this match definitely went a long way to prove that Shane Thorne is the star of TM61.
Definitely. Definitely. Nick Miller is just kind of there for me. I still hope for the best for TM61 as a collective, obviously. And certainly, I mean, that does continue because Shane Thorne, after shenanigans on the outside, Aries originally distracting, and then Nick Miller isolates it, but then Roderick takes out Nick Miller. Roderick gets caught in a cradle by Shane Thorne and they advance. But yeah, this match showed with how he was selling, with his comebacks. If you really focused in on Shane Thorne in the future, if you gave him a character, if you gave him something definable, and you just went from there, he could really be something. And dude, Roderick, that guy is a freaking specimen, because you, more than anybody, to your credit, have been saying that this guy has been doing it over a decade, and he just looks like he has not stopped. Like,
he's
just
gotten nothing but better over the last decade plus. Like, it's one of those things where there was a point that you could have accused him of being psychology-less spot monkey, but at this point, he is just so freaking good. Like, he's another one along the lines of like Joe and Nakamura, where it's like, how is this guy wasting away in NXT and not being used on the main roster in his prime of his life?
Dude, to me, like, we used to joke when Goldust first came back and he had that great tag team run with Cody Rhodes, like he has that Benjamin Button syndrome. I think Roderick has that shit on lockdown because this guy's been doing it for so long, and it seems like he gets better each and every time, and that's just insane to me. It's insane to me. Like, I really can't say that about many other people, and here's the thing, like, this isn't even coming from like a Roderick Strong mark, right? Like, where I foam at the mouth whenever he comes out. I just appreciate genius. I appreciate a guy that's an artisan between those ropes, and that's exactly how I would describe Roderick Strong. And it shows me personally how my tastes have changed as a wrestling fan, because you're talking like a few years ago, I would live for that old school X Division shit where it was just all these crazy spots. Now, man, I love a good story and I love good psychology, and it's because of men like Roderick Strong. Seeing him pick apart Shane Thorne's back was just an excellent story. And by the way, WWE, and
that turnbuckle spot looked brutal as hell too.
Dude, that was the most brutal spot of the night to me. And honestly, it was probably the most brutal thing we saw for me on both shows, because I know Castro had a rough go of it with Matanza, but something about that sidewalk slam looked fucking sick. And I'm like, damn. Like, that to me was like when Triple H used to backbreaker Shawn Michaels on his fucking steel chair, and Michaels just looked like he was paralyzed. That's the kind of vibe I got from it. No, Roderick Strong is fucking ace, and I'm so happy he's here. Again, like Nakamura and like Joe, I wish he was on the main roster, but we're still going to see nothing but brilliance from him. It sucks that Aries' injury caused them to be eliminated, and they just kind of wrote him off. Again, it's an opportunity for TM61 where I do feel like they should start being presented as more credible and pushed more. But, man, I just want to see Roderick drop the weights and just go running.
Dude,
he is so good.
I do want to add, I don't know if it was necessarily Aries' injury that got the team dropped out of the tournament. I think it's more likely that it was Hideo's injury that did that, because I think the story that they were going to try and tell was that Hideo and Ibushi would have ended up beating Sanity on this show, and then we would have gotten Hideo and his team versus Austin Aries and his team, and they would have had their match. And I'm guessing Hideo and Ibushi would have won that and gone on to the finals to lose to the Authors of Pain, which would have made even more sense, because then you've got like this underdog babyface team taking on the monster heels. but that couldn't happen because of Hideo. So if you're not going to have Hideo's team in the semifinals, you don't really need Roddy Strong and Austin Aries in the semifinals either. So I think that maybe one or maybe even both of those injuries led to this decision. But I'm cool with it because I love TM61, and now they're going to be facing Sanity, and Sanity could very well have their best match against these guys because they're freaking mechanics in there.
Oh, yeah. And, dude, the one question that I want to ask you before we kind of wrap up on this match, because I think I've exhausted everything that I can say about it, do you think Aries and Strong are going to stay together for a little bit longer past the Classic, or do you think we can really start looking seriously at Roderick Strong's singles run?
I think so, yeah, probably. I mean, we know Austin Aries is going to be out until early 2017.
Right. And,
so I think Roddy is definitely going to get some singles work, even if it's not a quote-unquote run in the sense that, like, he's going to have, you know, the title in sights or anything like that. I definitely think that he's going to have singles matches and perform on NXT TV for the rest of the year.
Oh, definitely. I can't wait for it because, again, this match, and, I mean, Shane Thorne's great. I don't say it to denigrate him, but, I mean, that singles match was great, and that was really just Shane Thorne, a guy that obviously knows what he's doing in there, but he's lower on the card. I can't wait to see Roderick Strong mix it up with the cream of the crop. That's what I'm really, like, salivating for, because I even think about a match like Roderick Strong versus Nakamura, when Nakamura seems to be making everybody his bitch, and I'm like, well, he might still beat Strong, but Strong, I think, would give him a run for his money, and I just get excited about those prospects. So, with that said, is there anything else you want to say about this match?
I want to see Roddy Strong versus Oni Lorcan. That can be Oni's first big singles feud, too.
Yeah, absolutely. Oni Lorcan, I definitely want to see more of because, I mean, Biff Busick's a beast, and as Oni Lorcan, he really hasn't done as much as I would like, but we'll see if he ever gets his turn. But with that said, I guess we can move on. What did we get after this? I don't know if we got like a backstage or if it was another match.
Well, yeah, after this, Team DIY came out for a match with the Revival, but then the Revival come out with Dawson on crutches and talking about how his knee's injured. He went down this long list. He was like, I've got a strained ACL, a torn MCL, and I broke my meniscus in half.
Dude, you know the measure of a gimmick or like how great a gimmick or a performer is when even when they're out of the picture, they can still be entertaining by being out of the picture. And Scott Dawson, man, like Dash Wilder isn't bad on the mic. Like I feel like he's serviceable. He can get you to point A to point B. Scott Dawson, though, man, it's always a fucking knee slapper with him. Because I just
is such an underrated promo. It's unbelievable.
Absolutely, dude. Because I loved, first of all, what you said running down the list of like how hurt he was. And then you get where he's like reliving this quote unquote conversation he had with his doctor. Like, oh no, Dawson, I can't let you do it. If you push yourself, your career's on. Just making it like this melodramatic thing. And yeah. I love too how Scott Dawson uses that, like, oh, I had all this heart and this courage, but the doctor said, no, Dawson, you have too much to live for. You can't do it, you know? And he said, the only reason that happened was because I'm not like you jamokes, you know, gesturing to...
Yeah, I love that. This could be a career-threatening injury if I was a normal jamoke, kind of like you two guys in there, but I'm a top guy. So all I got to do is get some bed rest and take an ibuprofen, and I'll be just fine.
Dude, I'm telling you, oh, God, if Raw wasn't so bad, I would love these guys to come up and beat the shit out of the New Day. We can't even look forward
to people getting called up anymore because of how bad the main roster is for the most part.
I know, like, I really do just want these guys to be on SmackDown Live, shatter Heath Slater's leg.
That's the thing, too, is like with SmackDown Live is way better than Raw by comparison, but then you look at NXT and it's like, oh my God, SmackDown Live isn't actually that good. NXT is way better, but then you look at Lucha Underground and it's like, oh my God, everything in WWE doesn't hold up. I mean, granted, NXT for the last month has been holding up to Lucha, which is a rarity, but it's still one of those things where it's like, damn, WWE, how you mess up this bad?
Dude, I know, because I look at guys like The Revival who... And I love their fucking story, and you know that, because before when these guys came together and they wanted to be called the Mechanics, you know how hyped I was for that. Reading the earlier reports, I'm like, oh yeah, that sounds like my kind of tag team. And I'll be honest, man, like they're still my kind of tag team. I love American Alpha to death, But the thing is, like every match the Revival has, especially the big stage matches like TakeOver and title defenses, I just get lost in them. And I'm enthralled by them, and I love it. So on one hand, yes, I'm devastated. Scott Dawson is injured, but where I'm relieved, I don't think they're going to have to forfeit those NXT tag team titles. And two,
Dude, I'm
yeah.
like 98% sure Dawson's not actually injured, and this whole thing was a work for them to not have to lose to Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa.
Which, I mean, if that's the case, why do you think that is? Because don't you think that's weird, given that the whole story is, like, we want to get back in the ring with the Revival to get an NXT Tag Team Championship match? Why do you think?
Well, I think that might be. I think. First of all, I want to be perfectly clear. I don't know. I'm not saying for sure, like, Dawson's faking it or anything like that.
Right.
I get the feeling that he's faking it because, dude, here's the thing. I mean, first of all, if he is injured, it's not what he listed because you can't break your meniscus.
Yeah.
You can tear it, but that's not the same thing.
Right.
So obviously, if he is injured, it's, you know, he was highly exaggerating on the little list and rundown that he went through. I feel like he's faking it, and the purpose is to heal it up and rob the crowd of a great match that they want to see, and let Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa move on to the semifinals. And then, like, what's a greater heel move than not caring about whether you win the Dusty Classic or not, because you're already the champion, so who cares about this tournament, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I feel like this is just next level heel work by these guys. I don't think they're actually hurt.
Yeah, you know, we'll see, because I mean that very well could be the case. But I mean, if he is hurt, let me just give the compliment again of staying in the mix and staying relevant by being so damn good. If he isn't hurt, I still say from a creative direction, like at first I thought it was questionable, but you know what? That works too, because then you're saving the title match for the big stage and you're not overexposing the matchup, which I was just complimenting Lucha Underground for last night with Puma and Mill. So, you know, that keeps the matchup to me fresh and it keeps it engaging. Either way, I think it's not even fair, really, to other tag teams on the roster. So, yeah, that's it. DIY doesn't get their match, so they advance via forfeit. Didn't we get the segment after this where they're kind of walking in the back and they get stopped for an interview? DIY?
Well, first we had a Cedric Alexander interview, but then that was happening, yeah. But Cedric Alexander first, he basically just says that he wanted to thank Cien Almas for teaching him that you can't thrive in NXT when you're just kind of happy to be there. So, yeah, that was kind of his whole thing. And then we did get to the Dasha Fuentes interview with DIY. And they say that, first of all, they had such an, like, hello, fellow children kind of moment here. And they were like, you know, if we could pick one emoji to describe how surprised we are by the Revival not wanting to fight us tonight, it would be this. And then they made, like, these super bored straight faces, and it was hilarious, but it was still like, oh, you guys are trying so hard to relate to the younger generation. It's kind of sad. and yeah, they're not surprised, but they want to win the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic, and then they want to win the NXT tag titles.
Yeah, you know, it's funny that you had that reaction. I like the promo. I think only because I love the playfulness and the chemistry that exists among DIY. Yeah, it's very apparent that these guys are very chummy with each other and stuff like that. I love it. I do think they're an amazing team. In fact, I think they are the only team I'm really comfortable with the Revival dropping those tag titles to, especially because, you know, the Revival are heels and, you know, DIY are such great baby faces. So, yeah, this is a serviceable promo. They've kept their focus. You know, we're going to win the Dusty Classic. I wouldn't mind if they won it, but I think the big thing in the end is that they do get the NXT tag team titles. So, yeah, good promo. Not much more I can say than that. I just want to see these two teams get back in the ring with each other again because, man, it's going to be amazing.
Do you know what I love about the fact, though, that the obvious path to the finals isn't happening now?
What's that?
I have no clue who's winning this thing. Like, my number one pick is obviously the Authors of Pain. But if the NXT wanted to have Gargano and Ciampa be Authors of Pain's first loss, I don't think I could complain about that because that's how you build a future NXT tag team. champions.
Right. Yeah. I mean, certainly, I completely agree with you. I feel like these injuries and everything and like all these circumstances have definitely thrown a wrench in the tag team classic. And I love how wide open it is. I'm still thinking, I mean, right now, at first I was thinking, oh, you know, AOP has got this on lock. But with the way Sanity's been booked, I just wonder, could they do it? And really, if they would, because I would want either Sanity, AOP.
And speaking of Sanity, can I also just say their freaking theme song is amazing.
Oh, dude, I've listened to that shit nonstop. Are you kidding me? Like that shit makes me want to tear the world up, man.
Yeah,
it's so good. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, DIY is a great promo here. A tag team division, and what I love too about this tag team classic, and maybe it's just me, maybe I'm seeing what I want to see on this front, but it feels like anyway there are more legitimate tag teams in here and actually making advancements than thrown together tag teams. That's the one thing that I never really got over with the original tag team classic is, oh, it's about tag teams, and yet you really have a team that was thrown together, even though they were super fucking.
And now, I mean, to be fair, the 4 teams that are in the semifinals are all actual pre-established tag teams,
which is amazing, and that's how it should be. Dude,
and think about it. The only team that lost in the quarterfinals that wasn't a thrown together tag team was the Revival, and they only lost by forfeit. Like Roddy and Austin Aries were thrown together and they lost in the quarterfinals. Swann and Jose were thrown together, they lost. And we'll talk about even later, Perkins and Ibushi were thrown together and they lost. So all of the thrown together tag teams were eliminated in the quarterfinals, if not earlier.
Right. And dude, I love that. That's how it should be. Anybody that's even been a brief listener of TWitWoW should be listening long enough to know I fucking love tag team wrestling. And to see these legitimate tag teams staking their claim in a tournament that's supposed to celebrate the life of Dusty Rhodes and they make this big deal out of, and rightfully so, you know, this is the tag team classic to me done right. I'm thinking Sanity's going to take it all. I'm pulling for either Sanity or AOP because I just like the idea of a heel team winning this tournament and then gunning after babyface champions, who I would assume would be DIY at this point. So that's really what I'm pulling for. We'll see where they go with it because anything can happen in the Tag Team Classic, as we've already seen with Hideo and now Aries. But yeah, man, I mean, I'm loving the teams that have advanced. This is great shit.
Yeah, absolutely. So after these 2 interviews, we got our second match of the night, and that was Swann and Jose versus AOP. And, you know, I don't know if I want to immediately say, like, jump to the conclusion that this was the Authors of Pain best match, because I did love their match with TM61 in Brooklyn, but this was in that category, I think.
Oh, dude, let me tell you right now, I love this match for 2 reasons. The first being they walked the dichotomy perfectly of AOP being the powerful, brutish team, and No Way Jose and Swann being the team with the quickness, the athleticism, the agility. Another thing I loved, in my mind, they really went out of their way to make Swann and Jose seem like a legitimate team, that if they stayed together after the Classic, I wouldn't mind, because if I'm not mistaken, and I could be wrong about this, this is the first time that Paul Ellering ever really took it upon himself to get involved in a match. Because at one point when the referee was distracted, he kind of hung Swann's throat on the bottom rope. You know, kind of did that hold down kind of thing where you do the choke. Yeah. Now, for Paul Ellering to feel so threatened that he has to get physically involved when have you seen his fucking team? Like, that just makes Jose and Swann look like the biggest deal to me.
That was another point that I wanted to bring up, was that, I mean, Jose was barely in this match at the very, very beginning. And then as soon as he tagged Swann in, ridiculously well against the Authors of Pain relative to what you would expect. Like, you would not expect him to do well against these guys at all. But he, not only did he hold his own more than Jose, he actually got the advantage quite a few times against both of these guys.
Yeah, and you know what, dude? Like, it's funny because when I was first watching this match, I really was kind of debating my feelings about that. Like, should they be looking this good? Because I feel like in other circumstances, I would have come down hard on it. So maybe I'm being hypocritical here. But I really liked how they handled it. Because, I mean, in the end, AOP does come out on top. And I like, too, that, you know, I think what this message really says is AOP can't rely on brute force anymore. They're going to have to up their game, which is what a tournament should be. Every opponent you have should be successively harder than the preceding opponent. So just because you were able to run roughshod over, I think it was the Bollywood boys, doesn't mean that No Way Jose and Swann, who are more credible than those guys, you know, that you're going to be able to use the same strategy ad infinitum until you get all the way to the finals and you have that trophy. You're going to have to refine your game. You're going to want to have cerebralness go with that power. And yeah, that's where I think Paul Ellering is going to really start to make a difference, because he can either get physically involved or he can really coach these guys backstage and say, hey, you know, we won, but I want more dominant wins. That was too close. And at points, yeah, it did seem like it was too close. But I mean, AOP does win. And I'll be cool with this if it really shows an evolution in AOP, that, oh, we just can't be these brutes anymore. We've got to have tact as well. And if they can get that down, I mean, DIY, good luck. Because, I mean, I'm telling you, I'm still picking AOP to be the next tag team champions after DIY gets their run. So, great match.
I'm telling you, man, the quarterfinals, not the quarterfinals, the semifinals aren't as black and white as I thought they would be, because, like, I could actually see Team DIY beating Authors of Pain and handing them their first loss. I could see that. And then when DIY wins the tag titles, AOP has more than just, you know, your champions as a reason to chase them. It could be a revenge story where it's like, you gave us our first loss, so now we're going to kill you and take your championships.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that could very easily be something that they do. And you said it best. This is nowhere near as black and white as we thought it was going to be. I mean, you remember, it was only a few episodes ago, we pulled up a bracket and we were just checking boxes like, oh yeah, this guy's going to go here, and this guy's going to go here, and this guy's going to go here. And now it's like, well, that got blown up. They sunk our battleship. But, you know, this was a fun match. I enjoyed it. AOP continues to entertain. And honestly, this is one of those cases where I hope that Jose and Swann stay together, because neither guy, I think, is going to do really anything eye-popping in singles. And I think they're better together right now than they are apart, simply because I think together they can stay on the radar. They can stay afloat. Whereas if they're apart, I'm not saying they'll sink, but I'd rather take my chances with, can you handle this? No way. Jose. You know,
Jose. Can you handle it? No way. Jose.
Yeah, it works, dude. It works.
For a while, at least.
Exactly. You know, I think it's a very likable team. I think it's a team that could move merch if you really, like, got behind these guys. So, yeah, I mean, let's see what they do. But fun match. And, yeah, that's all I got to say about it.
Yeah, brother. All right, up next, we had a big announcement that next week we would be getting both of our Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic semifinals matches. So we already know that we're going to be getting AOP versus Team DIY, and then we're also going to be getting TM61 versus the winner of our main event tonight, which we can move on to now, TJ Perkins and Kota Ibushi versus Sanity. And now that we're finally here, I want to point out that the T in Sanity isn't a T, it's a cross, because the S stands for Sawyer Fulton, the A stands for Alexander Wolf, the NI stands for Nikki, and then her last name is Cross, which is why there's a cross next to her NI, and then the Y is for Eric Young.
Yeah, dude. And let me say something about this match, too, because it was something I had in my head when we were watching the show last night. I feel like this match followed a similar formula to the preceding bout of AOP and Swann and Jose, like with that whole clearly defined dichotomy and everything. But I feel like they did it even better. I really enjoyed this tag team match. I loved how Perkins would try and get the knee bar in so quickly, but Sanity just, they had great ring awareness and they made frequent tags. I
gotta say, one of my biggest, really probably my only problem with this match,
right,
it was for Perkins to take Sawyer Fulton down to the knee bar.
Yeah, I mean, because it is kind of a weird visual, right? When you're like these big guys and you seem to be taken down so easily, when you, I would assume anyway, would have the leverage advantage being vertical and everything and having your size. Also didn't really know how
I
felt.
kind of wanted Fulton to just like stand his ground and then like grab Perkins off of his leg and throw him.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Like I wanted him to be more. I want Sawyer Fulton to be a little bit more like Braun Strowman-esque.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I totally get where you're coming from there. Me, I didn't really know how I felt about Eric Young having to provide a distraction because Kota got the Golden Star Powerbomb, I want to say, on Alexander Wolf. So that was kind of like my little is it too soon for them to be doing that? Because at least to AOP's credit, it was at least quite a few matches before Paul Ellering decided to get physically involved. But Sanity, this is only their second bout. But then again, you look at the quality of opponent, and that makes me a bit more forgiving. Kota Ibushi is still a beast. I can only imagine how NXT is feeling right now that they weren't able to nab him, to a deal, and that I don't know when he's going to be finished out with NXT for good. I'm guessing this may be his last appearance that we saw here before he devotes himself to Japan full time. But at the end of the day, Sanity does get the win. I actually feel like they pinned Kota Ibushi with their double team maneuver. And that was great. I love the team of Wolf and Fulton together. I think this was the perfect tag team to enter the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic. I still have a vision of them as NXT Tag Team Champions, Young as NXT Champion, and Cross as NXT Women's Champion. I want it to happen. I'm still really behind these guys, even with our
I think we might get that sometime next year, but I'm not expecting it anytime soon.
Yeah. Oh, my God. I'm right there with you. It's not going to happen right now. But 2017... Dude, 2017, the great thing is with all the amazing talents we have in WWE, it is a wide open year. And in NXT, I think NXT-wise, 2017 very well could be Sanity's year. It would not surprise me at all. Like, if somebody were to be like, oh, they won all the titles. Yeah, okay. Like, I believe.
I could see it happening at Brooklyn 3, actually. I think I've even said that before.
Yeah, you have. Brooklyn 3 may be the time where they just get all the gold. And I think the look is great. Again, the only nitpick we had, and really, I think that only really applies to Nikki Cross. You got to tone it down a little, not be such a tryhard with the crazy antics. Find another way. But if they can work that out, and that's just a gripe in what is really an amazing gimmick. The theme's on point, the aesthetics on point, the in-ring work's on point. So I'm still all about this right now. And sorry, Perkins and Ibushi, I guess you just lost your last life and you're out of the Classic. So, yeah, I'm very happy about this.
Yeah. All right. So this was actually a really fun match, but it was also the last match, which means it was the last segment, which means we can move on.
All right. High spots and low shots. You know what? I'm going to say that my low shot is Austin Aries because he couldn't even compete tonight in the actual tag team match, and then he would have been able to compete.
Got eliminated without him being able to do anything about it.
Exactly. I mean, what a rough night. You have no agency in this situation, and life shits on you for it. So yeah, Austin Aries is my low shot.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, that makes sense. I think that my low shot is going to be TJ Perkins because. Actually, no. I'm going to switch that around. I'm going to say my low shot's going to be with Kota Ibushi because I'm convinced that if he had Hideo Itami along with him, they would have freaking won this match. So you got pinned thanks to not having a better tag team partner, and now you're out of the tournament. So that sucks for Ibushi.
Yeah, it does. Looks like the Golden Star burned out on that one. My high spot, man. I'll tell you right now, brother, if it was just up to me and me being selfish and going into business for myself, my high spot would be Roderick Strong because I fucking loved what he did tonight. But he lost, so that doesn't make any sense. So I think I'm just going to say that my high spot is Sanity because I feel like they had the best tag team match on this show, and they won on top of that. So, yeah, Fulton and Wolf advance, and they just might take it all this year. So great stuff.
All right. Well, I think my high spot is going to have to be the authors of Pain.
All right. Good shit.
I think that would be a really weird but really interesting final two. The AOP versus Sanity. Like, what are the logistics of that? That's like the ultimate unstoppable force meeting immovable object kind of match. I don't know who would win that.
And it's such an interesting dynamic because both are heelish teams. I'm guessing
That's kind of why I feel like either DIY or TM61 is going to have to win their semifinal match so that we have at the very least we would have a face versus heel dynamic in the finals, you know?
And personally, bro, and I feel like you already said it or expressed it, I would have DIY beat AOP, get that loss out of the way for AOP, and it would be against a very, two veterans coming together as a very formidable team. I would have Sanity beat TM61 because while I like TM61, I don't think they're on the same level as a DIY right now, even in terms of exposure. And then I would have Sanity beat DIY because
what? I would have DIY win the whole thing then, because I feel like a big thing with the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic is they want a face team to win so that they can have that celebration ceremony to hand them the trophy.
And see, I get where you're coming from, but my thing is, one, I think they could do a very interesting ceremony segment with characters like Sanity that I'd love to see play out. And two,
well, and that's another thing too, is if Sanity wins the tournament, you would think that would put them into tag title contention sooner, but you want Gargano and Ciampa in tag title contentions as soon as possible. And since they didn't technically get beaten or beat rather the Revival, they don't really have a claim at the tag titles right now. But if they win the Tag Team Classic, you'd think that would give them that claim.
See, and well, again, I can see where you're coming from. I don't think WWE adheres to the same logic because I think what they're going to do is, oh, well, you had to forfeit. Well, now you are going to get in the ring with these guys, but since the Tag Team Classic is passed, you're going to put up the NXT Tag Team Championships. That's how DIY is going to get their shot. But then when they win the titles, Sanity is going to come out of nowhere and remind them, hey, we beat you in the Tag Team Classic. We want to trade in this trophy for that and gesture to the NXT Tag Team titles. So I still want Sanity to win the whole thing. This way, that could be in their back pocket to stake their claim for a title shot later. Whereas DIY could be like, okay, we didn't win, but we still have the Revival's number. We can win the NXT Tag Team titles. So that story I hope to tell. But for the record, nothing wrong with DIY winning either. Again, I can totally 150% see where you're coming from. I just feel like it's so much more interesting to me what would happen if Sanity won this tournament and what they'd be able to do in the tag team division and really in NXT as a whole after that. I just think this is a gimmick where you need to put your foot on the goddamn gas and not let up. So I'm going Sanity all the way, hopefully. But with that said, do you have any concluding remarks about tonight's NXT?
I don't. So let's close this bugger out.
All right, guys. This has been NXT. This has been TWitWoW, the best wrestling podcast made for wrestling fans, by wrestling fans, on the web today. I'm John. That's my cohort and commentary, Ashton. Guys, be sure to comment, subscribe, and like the video. The more likes this video gets, the more likely it is to be the top search result for NXT reviews on YouTube. When you're the best, when you're the king, number one is the only place where you belong. So be sure to leave a like on your way out. It'd be greatly appreciated. You guys already know all the media to check out because of the amazing backgrounds my cohort and commentary here makes. What you may not know, submit questions for Q&A. We do Q&A last Friday of every month, which means this month Q&A is going to be November 25th. So be sure to leave questions for Q&A. You can leave them on our Twitter, tweet at us, or DM us. I personally prefer DMs. Go to the Facebook page, like the page, when you visit, and you can inbox us there. Leave a comment on, even this video. When you're able to leave comments, do that there. You have options, a multitude of them. Everybody gets up to 5 questions. You don't have to use all 5, but you do have up to 5 that you can use. They can be divvied up however you want. Could be all 5 for me, all 5 for Ashton, all 5 for both of us. However you choose to divvy up your questions, that is your choice. They could be on any subject, as I know Paul William Gregory proved, who is in the chat. He had some amazing questions that really got heady and took us to certain places. So it just shows you never know what you're going to be asked on Q&A. So use your imagination. Let it run wild, brother. And just ask us the best questions that you can. And we will see you guys again for Lucha Underground live reactions. And we're going to be live reacting to Grave Consequences and Believers Backlash. It's going to be fucking amazing. In the words of Corey Graves about NXT, if that doesn't excite you, you need to check your pulse. But until then, Scum Squad 444 life. And tune in and peace out.